The process of becoming more aware can be placed in three categories. Broadly speaking, we create experiences through the cause and effect mechanics of the simulators that we utilize as references to recognize the ears by the comparisons that they provide. As everything created in the simulators is what the ears is not, we earn our awareness, our recognition of the ears, by sharing and promoting the true reality, the real references that pertain to it, and the real guides. As with everything equaling itself, life shares with us in equal measure the extent to which we share it with others and take the risk to do so. And also, we must face the whole of creation and our personal selves, our created consciousness, which has contributed to the simulation overall as it currently stands. As consciousness is the simulator, our consciousness effects experience, which adds to the overall simulation. As we have gone through our multitudes of lifetimes, so we forge our experiences through what we decide and agree with, as every idea, from thoughts to emotions, to what we create, generates effects we must experience, as is the design of the cause to effect simulators, all very necessary for our process, for our comparisons to recognize the ears by. But what tends to happen is we cling on to the various ideas we have incorporated and constructed the consciousness through. We hold on to certain memories, certain experiences, as opposed to just creating what we do, having the corresponding experience, then releasing it from further or continued consideration, to have our experiences but be indifferent and objective to them, to see them for what they are, illusionary, simulated references, and we only become stuck with them if we cling to them, if we continue to focus, decide, and agree with them. Then we make them perpetual, cause to effect experience realities. Also will be the attitudes we assume, the convictions, considerations, assumptions, the additional ideas we create and apply to the experiences we have generated, and then proceed to cling to also. And in addition to that, we create emotion in response to the experiences we have created. Nothing is being created by anyone or anything else than ourselves, as nothing can feature as our effect experiences, unless our agreements and decisions are there that cause them, and so we have our experiences, but we charge them emotionally, and so our consciousness comprises of everything we have decided in addition to the experiences we have created, rather than just experience references we are indifferent to. as we would be if we recognized them for what they really are. We have then a consciousness comprising of agreements, the created ideas which we cling to, and emotional attachments, the idea agreements we have charged with emotion. The consciousness is constructed as it is, as we have decided it, like files in a computer, and like these files, we can access them if we require the references, but we rather would endeavour to not constantly have the files open, to not have attachment or cling on to anything contained within these files. For what we cling to, we continue to experience. We keep all the files on our computer screens constantly, and never switch off the computer, that we can stand in the reality of the real awareness that is the operator of the computer, and that which only utilizes the files it contains. We are not our computer, we simply operate it. All the agreements and attachments we ever have forged throughout all our lifetimes will still be maintained, as these are decisions that, unless we are made conscious of and addressed, and then decided as to the releasing of them, they are maintained, and as lifetimes go by, much of these agreements and attachments we become unconscious of, though our simulation is the culmination of our consciousness, so there will be hints as to what these tap lines may be in our current experience on the physical and on the real side. With subconscious agreements, it's like, not only do we have constant files opened on our computer screens that we are conscious of, but we have an array of hidden apps opened also that we are not aware of. And so, part of this process of awareness, as I said, is to become conscious of everything our created consciousness comprises of, the agreements, the attachments, all the ideas and attitudes we cling to, the facing of the personal self. And once we are fully aware of everything, as we are shown these tap lines, so we can decide their release if we choose, and if we intend to not be anchored to a creation, we must release them all, as one idea is enough to generate effects that hold us to the experience of it continuously in creation. The emotions we apply to experiences, situations, and individuals are the most difficult for the personal self to release. The emotional attachments, the sensations of the astral body. We forge emotional attachment to the personal selves of others, to the ideas that their personal selves represent, and attachment and agreement to any created idea has us subjected to the effects. We are intertwined in the karma, the effects of the personal selves of others. When the personal self-body forms of others expire, so we also apply emotional charge as a reaction, the grief of their passing, even though no one is going anywhere. Everything is in a reality here and now, and the individual is just off on their next position and journey. But we rather chain the personal self-idea of the individual to us through the tap-lining bonds that both agree with, and we keep ourselves restricted in creation, and to perpetuate the presence of the idea of their personal self in our simulated experience. And so, all these tap-line attachments to all that we have them with, whenever and whichever lifetimes they were decided, must be faced and released, and as we do so, on the real side, we will have flashbacks of the lifetimes, dimensions, and experiences with these individuals that correspond with when these tap lines were decided, that we either recognize as people in our current lifetime, or we don't, as they are not currently featuring, but surely will at some stage or other, as the emotional attachment, if retained, will ensure this is so. The passing, the transitional stages, the emotional grief we decide when people do, make the emotional attachment more enhanced and stronger, as the seeming absence of individuals from our experience has us longing and yearning for their presence to be restored. And so, on this real side experience, I would revisit the passing of my grandfather, where much by way of grief and emotion was applied to the experience. Interestingly, I would have multiple views of his transition, and none of which seemed to correspond exactly with how it occurred in this lifetime. The scenes, situations, and the other people involved and present all very different. But as is the multi-dimensional nature of ourselves, in the nowness of the is, every experience is available for investigation and for potential tap-line releasing opportunities. Who knows how many versions of the same basic scenario, that of the transition of this individual in the role of my grandparent in this lifetime, has played out across the endless lifetimes, dimensions, and simulations, and how many times have I applied emotion to the emotional attachment that already existed between the individual and myself every time he transitioned, that such relationships are then perpetuated and continue in various forms, not just grandparent to grandchild. And so, as I was shown another emotional attachment to the created personal self-idea of an individual at the point where the emotional attachment was perhaps most enhanced, through the simultaneous views of the multi-dimensional versions of the experience, where transition of the individual took place. This then was another opportunity, that having recognized and been shown this tap line, to then decide its overall release, and I would do so. Featuring in the experience also was how, at one point, with one of these multiple transition experience views of the individual, I would forewarn my grandfather that he was to suffer a heart attack that would be especially traumatic. At the time of the experience, I would not have done this. The trauma would have been experienced, and he would have these additional effects to deal with also, that he would have carried over to the astral, as the trauma we experience rather follows us on a transition if we cling to it. I took it upon myself then to prepare this individual, as we can in fact not only revisit experiences, but alter them, and what we alter has effect ripples through the multi-dimensional nature of creation and with the individuals involved, an option that is not generally provided by the real awareness for a personal self to decide and be in a position to do such, unless the personal self can be trusted to not abuse such an experience causality altering opportunity, as reckless alteration can have severe consequences for the recipient of our interventions. It's likely also there was agreement between the real awareness of this individual and mine that I would decide to prepare his personal self in this way, and very likely, unaware as the individual was, he would not have realized this agreement his real awareness had made. And so, with the time I took in this experience rerun to prepare one version of my grandfather for what would be a painful transition, so it was that at the time of his passing, less shock and trauma would he experience, and so wouldn't take that with him to the astral. A trauma that would have made quite the difference with his created consciousness, his ongoing experience, and affecting adversely into future lifetimes, and although, as the decider of his experience and circumstances, that his choices caused the inducing of his painful transition, it does seem these situations and options for altering what would be construed as past lifetimes, which are actually just other dimensions, and all available and accessible in the nowness of the ears, are not only possible, but a constant occurrence. And as we decide to do so, as we operate from a real awareness position of sincerity and honour, should we be doing such alterations that then will ripple through the cause-to-effect dimensions of an individual's consciousness, and affect the individual's experience as it currently is, we can be assured that what we are doing makes sense, is beneficial awareness speaking, and will not be causing any undue harm, imposition, or have any adverse consequences.
This Christian lady that I talk to sometimes, her sister had a dream where she dreamt that her aunt was in a bed. It was depressed, like the bed was depressed, like she'd been laying, the aunt had been laying there for a long, long time. And then 3 times she got that the aunt would be dying or translating or transitioning into a new position. It was like 3 times she got this impression. And then in 3 months, she did translate or die. The aunt did. This is like, the aunt was like 92. She was pretty old. But yeah, I'm just wondering too that, you know, you have these experiences and telling others about them, sharing them. She could have shared that or not, but she kept it to herself. She didn't tell the aunt. But because this discretion, how to, you know, to share what we our real side experiences with people. Yeah, I just want to share that too.
And he told me this story. He said he was on a 3-day fast, and he happened to have to go to the toilet, I guess. And he died on the toilet. And he said he saw the silver cord snap. He said, "Oh my God, what have I done?" He said Rebazar stepped in, mended the cord back together, and said, "It's not your time."
This was who was this person that was on the toilet?
Burdock. Guy by the name of Burdock.
A friend of yours or what?
Yeah, he's somebody I had befriended. He said he was from Ekankar, and I befriended him, and later on finally loaned him some money and moved back east.
Well, I had an ex friend said she got a lot of her impressions, the best impressions, on the toilet, sitting on the toilet. She got a lot of intuitiveness and things from the real side, sitting on the toilet.
I forgot to ask him if he ever hit the floor.
Okay, okay.